me as well. But thank you all so much for joining me this evening. My name is Mary Donnelly. I am the Eastern Region Education Consultant at SAM Labs, and I am going to be taking you through elementary computer science with SAM Labs, STEAM, and coding, and talk to you tonight about how we facilitate elementary school computer science nationwide and how we can relate it back to New York and your computer science standards that you guys are working with now. So we'll start off with some quick introductions. So as I mentioned, my name is Mary, and I am the Eastern Region Education Consultant at SAM Labs. So I take care of all of the customer schools along the East Coast of the United States. I've been with SAM Labs for about a year, a little bit over. And prior to that, I was a middle school science teacher in South Florida. I taught for 9 years in Palm Beach County schools. And then I made the move up to South Carolina and started working with SAM Labs. So I've had a lot of fun taking my experience from being an educator and being in the classroom and then looping that in with computer science. And you'll see from our presentation today that there's a lot of collaboration between science and computer science that SAM Labs offers. So for all of my science teachers out there, you're going to find it extremely relevant. If you don't teach science, there's a lot of relevant material as well. My co-presenter, who is here with us virtually right now, is Rebecca Roberts. She is an instructional technology coordinator at one of the BOCES, and she is going to be here to kind of help me relate this back to the New York standards and make sure that it's extremely relevant for you so that you can take SAM Labs and go back and apply it immediately if it's a product that you want to use. Both of us are here as a resource for you guys after today, so feel free to reach out. We will share our emails again at the end, but we would love to hear from you and love to support you in all of your computer science instructional needs. So with that, let's chat a little bit about what we are going to dive into today. The first part of the session is just going to be me giving you a little bit of detail and information about what SAM Labs is. We'll talk about what we offer, how it works, and what it kind of looks like in the classroom. Then I will take a step back and we will have a little bit of fun. We're going to get hands-on and do a virtual coding session where you guys can get onto our coding platform and build out a code with me. After that, we'll dive a little bit deeper into the curriculum and talk about the courses that we offer for elementary school, and we'll directly relate those courses back to the New York standards so that you can see how it really relates and how we cover a ton of those standards in our lessons. And then lastly, we'll wrap up with a little bit more information about how Rebecca can directly help you with this implementation as well. If you guys have any questions as we're going through the session, feel free to drop them in the chat. I will periodically look over and answer questions as we're going. We can also do some questions at the end, but feel free to participate and share how you're feeling and ask any questions that you have. So, like I said, we're going to start off with what is SAM Labs. Some of you may have heard of our company before. Some of you probably have no idea who we are, and that is completely fine. SAM Labs is an ed tech company that provides STEAM and coding curriculum for K-8 instruction. We have a lot of different courses and a lot of different materials that are available to our teachers. But on my screen, we have our 4 main components that really come together to make SAM Labs what it is and make your instruction really seamless. The first component is going to be our curriculum and all of the lessons, which is really the most important piece, most likely. We have a couple of different courses that you can choose from. There's a K through 5th grade STEAM course that you can go through and integrate into science instruction. There's a 4th through 8th grade computer science course. And then there's also a kindergarten through 8th grade kind of makerspace engineering design type instruction that you can do as well. Within those courses, we have everything ready-made for the teachers. The lesson plan is extremely comprehensive with step-by-steps and all of the key information that you need to teach coding to your students. You also have ready-made slides to present the lesson. There are student handouts. There are interactive notebook activities, asynchronous versions of the lessons. I mean, the resources are really endless. And we also have a lot of planning resources like standards alignments and lesson overviews to kind of help you align to your instructional units and your standards and your scope and sequence. When you are presenting the lesson to your students, you and the students will be hopping onto our coding platforms. All of our coding platforms are housed within SAM Studio, which is kind of like the Google Classroom of SAM Labs. And that's where you'll always go in to create your codes. There are two different types of coding platforms that we offer. So I'm going to show you a quick little demo with each of them. The first coding platform is SAM Space. This is our flow-based coding platform. So it's more of like an icon-based type of coding where the students are dragging and dropping. The beauty of this platform is that it doesn't have any of the super complex techie language. So when you're working with kindergartners and first graders or your non-readers, they can still participate in the coding experience and visualize the logic of the code as it's working on the screen. The entire platform can also run virtually. So if you have a day where you can't incorporate hardware, or if a student wants to code from home, they can still see the entire code run. The code that I have up on my screen is a virtual streetlight. So it simulates the green, yellow, and red streetlights that we have at traffic intersections. The input for that streetlight is the spacebar on my computer. And the output is an RGB LED, which we have a physical version of, and we'll touch more on this hardware in just a little bit. All of the other blocks in the middle are our behaviors that are telling our light when to turn green, when to turn yellow, and when to turn red. So when I virtually run my system, you can see that my light is changing from green to yellow and red right on the screen. And you can also see that it's happening on my physical block. This is super fun for the students because it allows them to see their code working in real life and actually interact with it rather than it just being on a screen. The other coding platform that we have, which is generally used with our 4th grade through 8th graders, is our block-based coding platform. This is Sam Blockly. This is very similar to other coding platforms that your students have used if they've done block-based coding, similar to code.org, where the students are dragging and dropping the different blocks. Again, I'm able to run this completely virtually, but since I have my hardware connected, I can run the platform and see the block running and changing the colors just as it should be doing on the screen. So again, the students are able to bring that code to life. The difference between the two platforms really has to do with age range when you're working with SAM Labs. If you're working with kindergarten through 5th grade, you'll probably be on the flow-based coding platform. 4th and 5th grade, you have a little bit of overlap. And then in middle school, you're over onto that block-based platform. The third component of SAM Labs is the hardware, which I just showed you. We have physical versions of inputs and outputs so that the students can pair them to their code, bring their code to life, build a prototype, and watch it work in real time. Some examples of those blocks that we have are the light that I showed you. There are DC motors, light sensors, heat sensors, pressure sensors, servo motors, sliders, buttons, the list goes on. There's a ton of hardware. All of them connect via Bluetooth to the student's code so that they can also walk around and be remote with them. They don't have to be connected via any wires. So again, they can really see how that system works in real time. The last component, and probably the most important component of SAM Labs, is the support that we offer. The customer success team, which includes myself and 3 other former educators, are all really committed to making computer science very digestible for the teachers that we work with. So when you partner with SAM Labs, we offer complimentary level 1 training to get you started and then continuous support. We're happy to virtually support through lessons. We're happy to walk through lessons with you. We love to visit schools and push into classrooms. So there's a lot of holding your hand if you need it and being a thought partner for you so that we can collaborate and figure out the best way to reach those computer science standards for the students. I'm going to take a quick pause here because Rebecca, I think you can hear me now. And I'm going to let Rebecca introduce herself really quickly and then we'll continue forward.
So I'm Rebecca Roberts and I work for SAM Labs and BOCES, which is a little town in middle of nowhere, New York. And I run our mobile makerspace, which means that we have all of these items that go out to school districts and I do all the training on them. And it's a ton of fun. And SAM Labs is one of my favorite tools that we have. And we have everything they offer, we have.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rebecca. So like I mentioned before, Rebecca will really be helping me once we start talking about the actual curriculum and relating it back to those standards for you guys. So when we talk about the hardware and we talk about the courses with SAM Labs, there are a lot of different options for you to choose from based on what your computer science goals are and based on what grade levels you are working with. The first course on the left-hand side of my screen is our STEAM course. So that's going to be kindergarten through 5th grade. And all of the hardware and the lessons that are associated with that kit integrate into science instruction. So you are teaching science concepts, like let's say the water cycle, and then you are reinforcing that science concept while the students are coding a system that reinforces that science concept. So they would code a water cycle model and watch the water or the virtual water kind of move through the different phases of the water cycle. The students then work through various challenges to extend that code and make it more specialized so that they're practicing computational thinking, problem solving, and that iterative process to make sure that everything is working the way that it should. The Learn to Code kit is our 4th through 8th grade course. That is going to be more focused on computer science and programming. So rather than integrating into the science instruction, you're focusing on coding, you're focusing on programming, and you're focusing on teaching those computer science standards. That course is CSTA aligned, although I have been looking over your guys' standards and doing an alignment, and there is a ton of alignment across the board with the STEAM course, the Learn to Code course, and your standards. The Maker course or the Maker specialty is kind of like an expansion pack for SAM Labs where you get all of our inputs and all of our outputs. It is used with kindergarten through 8th grade and is especially great for a makerspace setting where you're focusing on prototyping and practicing the engineering design process. I saw in the chat someone mentioned a mobile makerspace. That's another great use for these. So that's a really fun way to kind of expand your SAM Labs implementation. And then our creators specialty is another type of kind of expansion pack where the students are focused more on prototyping. We have partnered with Strawbees and Lego Technics so that the students have the prototyping building pieces for those kits. And there's some really cool creative lessons in there that focus on building out the prototypes. Those integrate into science instruction as well. So they're a little bit of a collaboration between all of the courses that we have. The cool thing about SAM Labs, if you implement it kindergarten up through 8th grade, is you're able to show a full coding progression. Your younger students, your kindergartners, your 1st graders, your 2nd graders, your 3rd graders are going to focus on the flow-based coding platform. They're going to learn the drag and drop, and they're going to be able to visualize the logic of their code. Your 4th graders through 8th graders are then going to get introduced to Sam Blockly and work on the block-based coding platform. And anyone who you have doing that makerspace activity is going to be teetering between the two of them depending on their level. We also have a script-based coding platform called SAM Script, which is going to be released very soon that will allow the students to then transform their code up to JavaScript and Python. So if you're using SAM Labs from kindergarten through 8th grade, you're able to show them that full progression from flow-based to block-based to script-based. So super cool. All of this comes together a little bit differently based on the course that you are going to teach. But the slide that I have up on the screen really emphasizes that STEAM course, which is our main elementary course. You're teaching a mini lesson on a science concept. You're building a code to reinforce that science concept. And then you're building a prototype, pairing your hardware and bringing everything together to bring it to life. The lesson that I have up on the screen is actually one of my favorite lessons. It's called Monkey Ecosystem. And the science concept that it is teaching is that the sun is fueling everything in the ecosystem. And we need to understand that in order for an ecosystem to thrive and survive, it needs that energy from the sun. The students build a system using a light sensor that's reading the amount of sunlight in that area. And as the sunlight levels increase, it triggers different outputs. Like they'll start to hear rainfall or wind howling or wolves making noises, birds chirping, just kind of simulating that that ecosystem is coming to life. When your light level reaches its highest level, the DC motor is triggered to start to spin. And the students attach a little monkey prototype to it, and the monkey starts to spin around, showing that the monkey has all of the energy that it needs and really showing that whole ecosystem coming to life. So as you can see there, there's a coding side to it and there's a science side to it. The computer science course does not have the cute monkey prototypes, but it is super fun still. And there's a lot of fun prototypes that the students will make in that course as well. So that is your background on what we have in a very short and sweet condensed version. But I figured no one probably wants to listen to me talk about SAM Labs the whole time. So I wanted us to have some fun with it and get in and build a code. So here's how this is going to work. And I'm going to give everyone a minute to kind of get set up. There's a QR code on my screen that you can scan. The link is also up on my screen, and I will drop this link into our chat as well. And you can use that link to access SAM Studio. When you click on the link, you're going to see a little message like the message under step 2 that says, yeah, you're in. You're going to click the done button. And then you are going to click on create new and SAM space. And that's going to open up a coding platform for you. I'm going to pause for a couple of minutes and just give everyone some time to get on here. If you have questions, feel free to ask. You can access SAM Studio on your phone. It's a little bit smushed, but if you turn your phone vertically, or horizontally, excuse me, then you should be good to go. Or you can just put the link in and do it on a different tab. As you guys are getting onto that platform, let me know if you have questions. Let me go and grab it for you. Give me 1 second. All right, if that tiny URL is blocked, give that link a try. It should open it up. Wonderful. No problem. Another minute and then we'll get started. Once you open up that coding platform and you click on SAM Space, you should see a screen that looks like this. That is how you will know that you are in the correct place. If anyone needs me to go back and put that QR code up, let me know. But the links are in the chat as well. So for today's project, we are going to be coding a smart street light, which is essentially a street light that knows to turn on when it gets dark outside. So it's going to work just like the street lights that we have on the side of the road that know to turn on when it gets dark, whether it is 5 p.m., 8 p.m., or it is thunderstorming in the middle of the day. It's going to work with an input of a light sensor and an output of an RGB LED. We're going to build this code completely virtually, and you guys will be able to see that code come to life on your screen. Since you don't have the hardware, you won't be pairing the hardware, but I will be pairing my hardware to show you how that system works in real time as well. And then you guys can all come get some hardware. So in the middle of your screen, this speckly area is your workspace where we're going to build our code. So we'll drag and drop the blocks right up onto that workspace. If you need to zoom in or zoom out, there is this toggle over here on the right-hand side. You can also make your screen full screen. Just so you guys know some other functionalities, you do have the ability to change the language of the platform as well. So if you're working with ELL students, they can change their platform as an accommodation, and it changes all of the blocks and all of the block descriptions there. In the upper left-hand corner where it says new project, we are going to erase the words new project, and we are going to title our new project Smart Streetlight. You should be able to type right into that field. Now, if you had a SAM Studio account and this was saving, this automatically saves. That's what this little cloud means. So you never have to worry about your students saving their projects. If they forget, no big deal. It's always going to be saved to their account at the latest update that they had it at. They auto save every 30 seconds. Along the bottom is where we have all of our virtual blocks. Another super cool thing about SAM Labs is if your kit doesn't include a certain block, you can still use that block virtually. So if you're using the STEAM Classroom kit, you don't have a slider, but you can use this slider and it can control all of your blocks. So it's just another fun way to kind of expand the inputs and the outputs that the students have access to. So everyone's going to click on the Inputs tab on the bottom of their screen. And then we're going to drag this virtual light sensor out onto our workspace. Since our light sensor is virtual, it's in the computer, it's not able to read the light levels in the room that you're in right now. That is why you have this little toggle here. This is how we're going to set our light level. 0 would be completely dark. 100, you're right next to a light bulb or right next to a window when it's super bright outside. So when I tell you to set your light levels in just a little bit, I'll be asking you to move this toggle. Now we need to add our output, which is going to simulate our light. So we'll click on the Outputs tab, and you're going to find the RGB LED, it's the 4th block, and drag that over to the right-hand side of your screen. We're going to space those guys out so we have a lot of space. When I'm pushing into classes and working with the students, this is a easy way to link to a little bit of literacy. We like to explain to the students that we code from left to right, just the same way that we read. It's a little tie, but it's an ELA tie. Now, in order for your blocks to communicate to each other, we need to connect the dots between them. You'll see a little blue dot on the left-hand side of the light, or the right-hand side of your light sensor, and then we'll see a little dot next to your RGB LED. You're going to click on the dot next to your light sensor and drag your mouse, and a connection line is going to form. So for your students, it's super easy to connect those two blocks and make them interact. Now we have a colored line connecting our blocks, and there's those little dashes of energy going through. That's letting me know our blocks are communicating and we're good to go. Also, if I move too quickly through this code along, please write in the chat and I will slow down. So now that our blocks are communicating, our light sensor is going to control our RGB LED light. Go ahead and increase your light sensor value. I want you to slide that toggle all the way up to 100. And you'll notice a beam of light start to come out of your RGB LED. Right now, our light sensor is almost working like a dimmer switch. If you have your lights on a dimmer at home, when our light value is at its lowest, our RGB light is off. And when our light value is at its highest, our RGB light is on and at its brightest. Now, this yellow beam of light is extremely hard to see, maybe not for everyone, but definitely for me. So we are going to go in and we are going to change that color. If you click on your RGB LED, just a quick single click, you'll see an icon with a little gear. If you click on that gear, that will open up your settings and allow you to choose whatever color you want. Now, we do not need to be conventional with our streetlight colors, so go ahead and choose whatever color makes you happy, and then click the Done button. And then you will see that your beam of light is now whatever color you assigned before, once you have that light level all the way up. I'll give everyone just a second to do that. All right, now, right now, when our light levels are the lowest, when it's dark outside, our street light is off. And when our light levels are the highest, it's bright outside and our street light is on. So right now, our street light is super unhelpful and doing the opposite of what we need it to be doing. That is why we are going to bring in a behavior. The behaviors on the last tab at the bottom are going to act like your rules for your code. They're going to tell your input and output how to interact with each other. So they're going to tell your light when to turn on. They're going to tell your motors how fast to go. They're going to tell your input and your output exactly what you want them to do. All of those behaviors are dropped into categories based on what they do. There's numbers, switches, time. These categories really kind of scaffold the behaviors out to your students. Otherwise, they're going to be looking at a list of 50 blocks and trying to figure out what each one does. So it narrows down those options for them. We're going to click into the numbers folder. So again, you're clicking on behaviors and then you're clicking on numbers. The block that you're going to grab is the compare block, the one with the equal 60 on the front of it. And when you drag this onto your workspace, I want you to drop it directly on top of that connection line, and it will drop right into your code. So it's automatically a part of the code. Now, what this block is doing right now is it is telling our light to only turn on when our light sensor value is equal to 60. So if you slide this toggle down to 60, which is sometimes hard to do depending on the device, your light will only be on when your light sensor is at exactly 60. But if you drop to 59 or up to 61, it turns off. So that's how this block works, is it kind of sets the parameters of when the output can turn on. We need to manipulate this because we don't want our light on at 60. That doesn't make any sense for a street light. Oh, no problem, Danielle. So here's what you're going to do. I'll delete this line real quick. To get the line between them, you have a little dot on the right-hand side of your light sensor and a little dot over here on your RGB LED. You're going to click on this dot and hold your mouse down and drag the line and just connect those two dots. And then you can drop this compare block right in the middle. Let me know if that helps. We'll pause for just a second. I want to make sure you guys get the whole code. Awesome. No problem. Okay, so we are going to manipulate this compare block to get it to do what we want it to do. You're going to click on the compare block so that those three little icons pop up. You're going to find the one with the gear, and you're going to click on the gear. It is so fun, Danielle. Just wait until you do a car with the students. It's extra fun. We're going to use the drop-down menu here where the equal sign is to change our equal sign to a less than sign. Now, this is a prime opportunity for a sneaky math lesson about inequalities. Your students won't even know that you're teaching them a math standard, but you're reviewing a concept. Once you have your less than sign, you're going to slide your number down to about 20. Now, if I was with a group of students, this is how I would explain that number. We know that 0 is completely dark. We know that 100 is super bright. We know we want our street light on when it's dark, but we want it to turn on before it gets super dark. We want it to turn on at like dusk. So I would probably ask my students to estimate what number they think would represent the sun starting to go down. Generally, we land around the 20 to 30 range when I ask that question. So that's why I went with 20 today. So again, you want to have less than, and you want to have 20, and then you're going to click done. Now on the front of your compare block, you should see less than 20 on the front of that circle, verifying that you did your settings the way that you were supposed to. Now it is time to test our system. So you're going to use this slider to set your light sensor value. When you drop your light sensor value below 20, you should see that your street light turns on. And when you slide your light sensor value above 20, you should see that your street light is off. That symbolizes at night, our street light is automatically on, and during the day, our street light is automatically off. If you're not seeing that in your system, let me know, but that is what you should be seeing. While people are writing, I'm going to show you what this would look like if we paired the hardware and the students brought that code to life. So I went ahead and grabbed my RGB LED, which is my physical light, and my light sensor, which is our physical input that's going to read the light levels. To connect my blocks, I'm going to go over here and do a quick Bluetooth connection once I turn those blocks on. This is generally a pretty quick process once your students get the hang of it as well. Make sure I'm connecting the right block. And now my blocks are connected. The biggest difference that you should see on my screen is that that little slider is gone. Now I have a tab on top of my light sensor, and that tab is telling me the light level in my room right now. So as I move my light sensor around, the light levels are changing as I'm getting closer to light bulbs in my room and farther away from light bulbs in this room. So the students can see in real time what that ambient light level is in their room. This is also now controlling my light. If I cover up my light sensor, put it in my hand, my street light is going to turn on. And then if I uncover my light sensor, my street light turns back off. So same thing as the virtual system. When it is dark, our street light is on. When it is bright, our street light is off. This isn't even the most exciting code that we have at SAM Labs. This is just a quick one that we could do together. And every time I do it with students, they freak out. They absolutely love it. So I'm sure that your students would enjoy it as well. And I hope that doing the virtual version was just as exciting as the physical one. As we wrap up this project, if you guys have any questions about pairing the blocks or how we built out that code or anything like that, feel free to throw them in the chat. I hope that you enjoyed that little hands-on portion. I'm so glad that you like it. And I'm going to jump back over to our slides. I will say, while the virtual platform is fun, having the kids be able to go in and really get their hands on the blocks and build that prototype and see it work in real life is such a cool experience. And it really makes it so relevant for them. The fact that we have so many different inputs and outputs opens up the coding opportunities for them. It takes away, in a lot of coding programs, you're coding one robot and you're making it do a few different things. In this system, they can build a lot of different systems and make those systems do a lot of different things. So it really just expands it. So now that we got the basics of the coding platform, let's talk about the actual courses that we have and what this looks like and how it relates back to your standards. The first course that I touched on before is our STEAM course, and we actually have two different K-5 STEAM courses. The first is our STEAM modular course, which is our flagship course at SAM Labs. This one is absolutely fantastic. The lessons are kindergarten through 5th grade. There's about 10 lessons per grade level, and you are teaching science or supporting science through coding. The STEAM modular lessons are more supplemental than they are covering an entire science concept. So this works really well for like our STEAM special teachers or our tech special teachers who aren't in charge of teaching the science standard, but you want to loop it back in and kind of go cross-curricular. In these lessons, you're giving a mini lesson, reviewing a science concept that the students have already learned, and then reinforcing that concept through coding challenges and then building a system. The STEAM 5E course is one of our brand new courses. The reason that this came out was we had a lot of our teachers asking for lessons that did allow them to teach the entire science standard. So these are really good for our science teachers who need to teach a whole science lesson, or your general education teachers who need to teach a whole science lesson. These lessons range from 2nd grade to 6th grade, and it is fully hitting that science standard within a lesson. The lessons are formatted into the 5E lesson model, and they're divided into 3 days. And you're spending those 3 days going through the science concept and then using your code to practice that science concept. Something that is super cool about the 5E version that I love is that when you get to the actual lesson, the meat of the science that you're teaching, you have 2 options for presenting. We give you the materials to present the lesson through direct instruction as the teachers guiding the students, but we also give you the materials for student exploration. And the students are provided with videos and articles and resources to go in and explore that science concept themselves and find the information on their own. So that really fosters that inquiry-based learning model where the students are going in and taking responsibility for their learning. That's something that I absolutely love about it. So those are our 2 STEAM courses. And again, those are K through 5, K through 6, based on the 2 that we have here. They are NGSS and CSTA aligned, but Rebecca and I did a bit of a deep dive, and we'll talk about how those standards apply in just a second. Within the STEAM and the STEAM 5e course, like I said, there's about 10 to 12 lessons per grade level. So you have a lot to explore. And then you have lesson plans, slides, student handouts, interactive notebook activities, formative assessments to track learning, and asynchronous versions of the lessons that are available on Nearpod. So you can really take the resources that fit your teaching style and fit your students' learning style and use what you want to use. You don't have to use every single resource. You can use every single resource if you want, but we give you everything so that you don't have to create things on your own. I'm going to let Rebecca take over for a minute and talk to us about some standards alignments. And Rebecca, just let me know when you're ready for me to move the slide. Oh, you're muted. Sorry.
Of course I am. So you can see a lesson up here, and what we've done is showed you that this particular lesson will reach some of the computational standards. Sorry, it's really small on my screen, so I'm squinting. And what you might notice here is that one lesson plan will cover multiple standards. So it's not that you have to do one of these 3-day lesson plans and you're only covering one of the computer science standards. It's one lesson is actually covering multiple standards. So you're hitting a lot of them all at one time. So this is one of the challenge cards, right? That I'm looking at.
I can probably see it a little bit better on mine, so I can read
it.
Yeah. So what we're showing here is that a lot of these standards, this is all within one lesson. And it's covering all of the standards that I have kind of boxed out. Specifically here, identifying and debugging errors within an algorithm or a program. Every single STEAM lesson and every single Learn to Code lesson has a debug portion where we have something coded to go wrong and the students have to work together to debug that problem, figure out what to do to solve it, and make it work correctly. So we're really hitting home on that debugging standard. We also have identifying essential details needed to perform a general task, or identifying multiple ways for the same problem to be decomposed into smaller steps. So within those lessons, the students are also working through challenges where they're extending their code. They're trying to make their code do the same thing, but in a different way. Maybe they're trying to make it more efficient. So they're looking at those multiple ways to solve the same problem. And then at the very top, create a model of an object or a computational process. In every single lesson that you're going to do, the students are going to build a physical model and build a physical prototype. Let's see, our cybersecurity standards, they have a couple of lessons in our STEAM course that specifically focus on cybersecurity, building a password, and what you should be putting into your password to make sure that it is secure and that it can't get hacked. Within those lessons, you're also talking about why you might want to keep things private on the internet and keep things secure. So we're really hitting home on those top 2 standards as well. And then for network systems and design, we really focused in here on the concepts of teaching input and output and the concepts of teaching software and hardware. Within our starter lessons, those concepts are hit home right from the very beginning, because in order to do the lessons, the students need to understand those basic concepts for input, output, hardware, software, because they're using all of those on a regular basis with SAM Labs. So you're really covering that every single day. Rebecca, any other pieces that you want to add there?
I just want to say that sometimes with especially your younger kids, some of these things are really hard to find a way to teach, and this makes it really easy, and it gives the student that concrete idea of what an input and output is for because that's kind of hard with the younger kids, and so the physical hands-on makes them get that concept. So when they talk about it as they age up into other grade levels, you're not trying as fourth, fifth grader trying to still explain what input output is. They already have it. So really, this is great for any grade level, but it's really, really nice if you can get teachers to start using it in the younger grades and then build up through, the older grades with it.
Yeah, it's definitely a great progression there. I agree. And again, if you guys have questions on those courses, feel free to drop them into the chat. The other course that I wanted to highlight is our 4th through 8th grade computer science course, which is called Learn to Code. This was another one of the original courses that SAM Labs came out with. Same as the STEAM course, there's about 10 lessons per grade level. Each of these lessons are about 90 minutes. So you might split them up into 2 classes, but a part of my job and what my team does is we also help you condense them and make them fit into your class period. So don't be scared by lesson times, because you can absolutely make them fit into your 40-minute period with your students as well.
One of the things that would add here is that teachers that aren't used to coding and they hear the word code and they go, I don't know anything about coding, and they kind of get all tensed up and don't want to do something. This is so step-by-step for you that it answers those questions and it shows you how to move from one to the next to the next. So it's really clear. You don't have to have a strong coding background to run these in your classroom.
100%. And with these lessons, you're really, like I mentioned before, hammering home those computer science program concepts. So you're teaching students about algorithms, you're teaching them about variables, you're teaching them about compound conditionals, but you're also talking about cybersecurity in a lot of them as well. And same as the STEAM course, you have everything ready-made for you. You have your lesson plans, your student handout, your formative assessments, everything is there ready to go for you. Now, when it comes to the standards here, there are a ton that are hit by the SAM Labs lessons, and I'm just going to highlight a few. Otherwise, we are going to run over our time. But a few that really stuck out to me as I was looking through the alignment would be developing a computational model of a system that shows changes in an input when there's changes in an output. The students are going to do that every single time, every single code that they build. We also have a specific lessons that focus on algorithms. So that was down here, develop an algorithm or a program that uses repetition and conditionals, which also loops in our compound conditional lesson. And then we had one about variables as well, which I know was hit on here. Here, identify and name a task with a problem that gets performed multiple times while solving a problem. So this is 3 SAM Labs lessons, and those 3 lessons basically covered this entire chart. So they definitely cover a lot. And then Rebecca, if you want to speak on the cybersecurity and then the networking.
Sure. So this one is, it says right there, how do you keep our details secret online? So again, when we're talking with the younger kids, that's really difficult to get them to understand. Most school districts have single sign-on, so teaching them how to have safe passwords and that kind of thing, it's a difficult task because it's single sign-on and they're not worrying about passwords right now. But we have to start teaching them young that their passwords really make a impact, because these kids are getting online and creating accounts, social media, that kind of accounts, while they're really young. So this is a way to get them to understand those things in a way they can totally understand, and it's gamified, so it's it's fun, it's hands-on. It's much better than you standing in front of the classroom, preaching to them not to do something. So it also hits some of these networks and system designs, especially the hardware and software aspect, and determining potential solutions to solve hardware and software problems using common troubleshooting strategies. When I teach CSDF standards to our teachers, I talk about how we don't want kids to come to us and say, my pencil lead broke. We want them to say, I need to sharpen my pencil, or I need to get a new pencil. We need them to come to us with solutions, not just come to us with a problem. So this gives them that, and they can play around with it. We don't want to say there's no right or wrong, but there's different ways to do the same thing, and that's great, and that's what we want to teach them. And the data, where data can be stored, especially by 4th grade, they're starting to understand that there's cloud storage, but a lot of some of our teachers still don't quite understand what cloud storage is. So this is a good way to teach some of those subjects that our teachers may not actually have a real grasp of themselves.
Absolutely. And these lessons all kind of build off of one another in the Learn to Code course, so that you're scaffolding that information out to the students in a progression that makes sense to them. So it's not random that you're talking about backing up information. It really fits right into the curriculum. On this alignment, we're kind of jumping around all over the place, but there is a very nice progression there. The last resource that I wanted to highlight is our Maker task cards. While these are not full lessons, they are probably my favorite resource that we have at SAM Labs. We have a huge bank of open-ended task cards for the students to work on different coding and prototyping challenges. There is no set solution for these challenges, though we do provide the teachers with an optional solution. So if the students are struggling, you can help them with them. But an example of one, just so you can hear a task card, Blocky noticed that there has been a lot more traffic in his neighborhood and he's worried. Create a super crosswalk for people to safely cross the street. So what's cool about this is the students can virtually build their code. They can pair the hardware, they can build a prototype, and then they can iterate on it and make sure that it actually works in real time. This can be an activity that's done for 5 minutes at the end of a class period, or it can be an activity that you work on for 3 weeks because they're building prototypes and making an entire unit. So there's a lot that you can do with this, and it really relates into PBLA as well, which Rebecca, you can touch on.
Yeah, so PBLA is becoming a very big thing here in New York. There was just a 2-day training on it in Albany. Lots of stuff coming up about this. And these prototypes are really the engineering, where we want kids to find a real world problem, try and come up with a solution. This solution doesn't quite work or doesn't quite work as well as we want it to. So we're going to go back and change up our design a little bit and try again. And it teaches our kids really to keep trying, which is really important. Our kids tend to give up way too easy nowadays. I've seen it in the classrooms. I've heard the teachers' frustrations with that. So this really gives them the extra help. This is really great for an after-school program. You can pull these cards out and you can say, all right, today we're going to do this. They can work in pairs. They can work solely by themselves, whatever they're comfortable with. So you can really do a lot with these cards. And sometimes starting with these cards is a good place to start to get them to familiarize themselves with the pieces, because it's not so overwhelming. But these can be a lot of fun for kids. I know my teachers have a blast with them when we do them, and it's crazy with what they come up with on their own.
Yeah. The flexibility of these, I think, is what is the best part of them. And it really gets like the creative juices flowing with the students, because there's no structure. They need to just start going and start thinking, and it lets them get creative and really kind of fosters that computational thinking of like, how are we going to make this work, and really builds that skill. So I agree. All right. Lastly, we're going to touch on how Rebecca can help you guys with SAM Labs.
So New York State BOCES, most of you probably know this, but may not. So purchasing SAM Lab products and the licensing through BOCES is aidable. So that means that your district gets money back from New York State for purchasing it through the BOCES. We also have the contract in place. So Ed2D law, everything's good to go. We can go ahead and order. So BOCES can also facilitate the purchase for you, get the items in. We can provide assistance with how to utilize these in your classroom, give you some ideas, give you some hands-on professional development for workshops. I've actually been known to go into school districts and bring products with me and do like the I do, we do, you do thing, where I teach a little mini lesson with something and I do it, and then the teacher kind of does one with me there to support, and then they're set to do it on their own. Because sometimes that comfort level with a new product that you don't really know well can scare teachers off. So as a BOCES, we want to make sure that we're there to support you so that you want to go ahead and use these. And SAM Labs may already be available to you via your BOCES makerspace if you have one. I'm not sure every BOCES has one. We created ours back in 2018, I believe we started. Every year we buy some new products and we make it loanable so that you can just borrow the items. We can help you use it in the classroom, and you can have some hands-on time with it before your district actually jumps in and purchases something. So, because sometimes your districts are like, yeah, we don't have the money for that. But if it's something you've borrowed and you've used, and we can show them how it helps the students learn, helps you with the curriculum, then they're more apt to go ahead and say, okay, yep, we'll put the money into it. So I don't know what your districts offer. I don't, from what BOCES that you're under, but I know my email address is on the slides. You can reach out to me anytime, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that I can and maybe help you work with your BOCES.
Yeah. And having that ability to have somebody come in and work with you when you're getting started is so valuable as well. That's something that we like to do at SAM Labs, but there's not enough of us to be everywhere all the time. So having people like Rebecca who can kind of be an expert in the field and come in and help is so valuable as well. And it really just helps you get comfortable. Like she said, the first lesson can be a little scary sometimes when you're taking on new tech. So it's always helpful to have that as well. Oh, there we go. All right. So we're going to open up the floor for any questions that you guys have. Feel free to put them into the chat. I'm also going to throw this up on the screen. That is my email and Rebecca's email. So you can email either of us. If you have questions about purchasing SAM Labs and what that looks like, feel free to reach out to me and I can put you in touch with the right people as well. So we can answer any questions that you guys have and really make sure that you have the best experience with it. But I'm hoping that some of you were super inspired by this and want to get this into your classroom because it is very fun. It's not just entertaining though. You're really teaching a lot to the students while they're having fun and tricking them into doing the learning, which I think is a really beneficial piece of it all. So we will hang out also, just so you guys know, after this session, there is a 30-minute break, and then there is an NYSED keynote speech from Andrea Voss and Brad Boyles. So please make sure to come back for that. And if you don't have questions, then I guess you can take your break 5 minutes early, but totally up to you. And thank you so much.